Welcome to Galley Tips. I'm Alyse and I'm with Ask Captain Chris. And today we're going to talk about all kinds of fun things to do in your galley, on your boat. And believe it or not, it shouldn't be that much different than the way you work in your kitchen at home. And the things that I'm going to show you today, please don't misunderstand. I'm not telling you this is the way you should do it. I'm offering you options of what brings me joy and the things that I can do in my galley, and you might then start thinking about, well, boy, I didn't think about that, or wow, I never knew I could do that in my galley. So these are the kinds of tips that I'll be offering for you today in this session. Now, in front of me, you see something that's probably a cardinal rule on a lot of people's boats: no glass. That's glass. I had all of this glass and more on my boat. I had my Christmas china on the boat. I had service for 12. And I had for 12 because I really thought I'd be breaking a lot of dishes. And I thought, what happens if you break dishes? You clean them up. And that's about as easy as it gets. But I didn't break them because I didn't pull these kind of glasses out until we were at the dock or safely at anchor, and it was going to be a nice evening out. So how did I deal with having these glasses so that they didn't clink together? Well, there's a couple of ways that you can do it. You can go to the package store and get something like this, bubble wrap, and slide them over your glasses, and that worked for a while. And then I got really creative. And you go to boat shows and you get koozies like this as freebies. Well, this is great for not only a bottle of soda or a bottle of beer, but it can also go right over, let's unzip it all the way, it can go right over a champagne glass. And then you have nothing that's going to break it. It's going to be fine. So then I looked at these. Oh, these were great. You get these in so many places as freebies. Some of them, this might sound silly, but I started becoming a koozie snob, and I wanted to see which ones stretched better than others, because some don't stretch big enough for the glasses that I liked, and some not only went perfectly over wine glasses, but even really, really fat wine glasses. If they stretch enough, they can go over it. And then you don't have things clinking together. So that works really great. And you might think, well, maybe I don't have so many koozies, or I want it to look more uniform. I've seen people take tube socks and put them over their glasses, all kinds of things like that. In addition to having your glasses covered, you might have bottles of things. Bottles of wine, special bottles of juice that come in only glass bottles. Well, if it comes in a plastic bottle, that's fine. If it comes in plastic, you don't need to cover that with anything. But if it's in a glass bottle, you don't want that clinking against something else. So you can cover it with, again, a variety of different things, very simple. I don't sew very well at all, but I can sew a straight stitch. So that's all that it takes, is to cover that. And you'll see how we use this in our video in just a little bit. Then even the martini glasses. I love martinis, but I also love to use these for dessert glasses. And you could take something that's a little bit wider and put it over the top, and again, it keeps things from clinking together. So there's all kinds of ways that you can keep your glasses, and you'll see in a little bit how we kept our dishes. When you're looking for utensils, your drawers are usually not going to be as deep or as tall as your drawers in your house. So your cabinet drawers, as they pull out, you might want to think about things that are flat like this. So it's a whisk, but it's flat. This works great as tongs, but it also folds back so that it stays flat in a drawer. So these are the kinds of things that you want to look for. We did carry plastic glasses for when we're underway, and this is Tervis, which is great. They're made in the USA, and they have a lifetime warranty. So if they break, you can return them. It's great. And then having different patterns on them is wonderful, because I can have one glass, Chris can have the other. We know whose glass is whose. We put them in a caddy, but there's all kinds of other ways that you can carry your drinks and have them rest easy without spilling over if you're underway. And I always had fun little things like this, because you never knew who was going to pop over and Tell me if you've ever gone to somebody's boat and they gave you an umbrella drink. Weren't you more excited about it? You didn't almost care what was in it. So for me, it's all about the fun. Now, let's get to a little bit of the meat and potatoes of it. We got to collect our groceries some of these times. So when we go to the store, we've got to have bags to carry it back, unless we're going to take a cab, and then we've got a lot of little grocery bags. But canvas bags are awesome because the canvas bag is lightweight. It folds up easily. It can go in the laundry when you're done with it. But then you can go a little bit further and say, all right, this canvas bag is wonderful in that aspect, but it doesn't have a seam on it. All right, not a seam, a zipper. This canvas bag has a zipper on it, and the beauty of it is also that it's very well lined in the center for any kind of cold goods that you might bring. Then you've got these wonderful bags. I feel like Mary Poppins sometimes pulling out all this stuff. But you have a bag that unfolds and unfolds and unfolds, and it gets pretty big. And when you come back from the grocery store and you've bought too much and you don't have room for it all in your refrigerator, you can take some of these refrigerator bags, see how they got the silver in it, and you can then put ice in there. And again, we'll show you some of that as we go through our session. Now, this is one of the other really important things that in one case you'll use it often, I believe, and in another case I hope you never have to. I like to take plastic containers that have a burpable lid on them that I cannot see through. And the reason why I want them that I cannot see through them is because when I cut up my vegetables, my apple cores, any of that sort of eggshells, coffee grounds, I don't put them in the garbage to make smelly garbage. I keep my garbage in the kitchen and anywhere else in the boat, the galley and anywhere else in the boat. I keep that mostly for dry garbage. I use this as a compost can. And believe it or not, there's some marinas these days that even have a compost section, or they have a garden that they tell me to toss it in afterwards. But even if I just compost while I'm on the boat and then toss it in the big main trash in the marina when I get back to shore, that still saves a lot of inconvenience on the boat. And believe it or not, when you tap, 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 tap with all of the compost material that's in here, it does get lower and lower as the days go on. And if you burp it away from you when you open it, some of those aromas go away from you and you don't have to smell them. So that's the one way that I like to use this. And believe me, that's saved a lot with trash. But another way that I've used these different ones, maybe not this one that I used for compost, but a different one that you can use when you're, let's say, unexpectedly in a boatyard on the hard, having something repaired in your boat. And it's the middle of the night. And you don't really want to have to climb down a ladder to go to shore, to go to the head that's somewhere across the whole boatyard. You can take one of these, put it in your head, put it in your toilet. 3 o'clock in the morning, okay, nature called. Then you can put the lid back on it, put it in one of these canvas bags that can go in the laundry, walk down the ladder at 8 in the morning when it's bright out and the door is unlocked for the marina, and you can pour it in the toilet that way. So it's not something that you've ever had to use, and I can hear you. I can hear some of you saying, really? And that's what I said the first time a very experienced cruiser shared this idea with me, and I said, I will never do that. Until I did, when it was unexpectedly that we had to get hauled and had to stay on the boat to check on the work that was being done, and boy, did this come in handy. So there's going to be lots and lots of tricks. This is probably one of the more meat and potato kind of things. There's some other really, really fun ideas. And I think that you'll really have your eyes open to some ways that could work for you. Don't take anybody's grocery list. Make your own groceries. Take a Sharpie pen right now as you're at your house, not even when you're on your boat. And every time you open something, write on that with that Sharpie pen the date that you opened it. Then when you're finished with it, you know, It took me 2 months to use this condiment, or it took me a week to use this roll of paper towels, or it took me however long to use any of these products. Then you can start understanding how many things you really need to buy in advance for your groceries. The last tip is going to be, there's grocery stores almost everywhere. They may not have the exact brand of something that you like. They may not have the exact size of something that you like, but there's always going to be food along the way, no matter where you travel. And it's a really fun adventure. So stay tuned and pay attention to some of these great galley tips. So this is the boat that we lived aboard for 15 years of the 19 years that we owned her. This is a 44-foot Gulf Star full displacement, slow trawler. And we had Galley down, which you'll see in a moment. And we didn't own a land-based house for 15 of those years. So everything we cooked aboard. Everything we stored aboard. We hope this is going to help you. Here is our tiny little, what I call a 2-butt galley, and what Chris calls a 1-butt galley. But truth be told, in our big kitchen in our house today, he still calls it a 1-butt kitchen. He doesn't like to play nice in a galley. And all of our meals we ate on the table on our aft deck, unless it was pouring rain and it was just the two of us. Then we might eat inside at our little breakfast bar. But you'll see, real plates, real silverware, cloth napkins, and we were getting ready to be underway, which is why we had some Tervis glasses, but even our orange juice glasses were glass. So we liked to dine. We didn't like to just eat off of paper plates. This was the most fun. It's tea time. Everywhere we went, if we were there at Christmas time, anywhere between Christmas time and January 6th, we would have a ladies' tea. And wherever we were, if we had been there the year before, or if similar boats were there from the year before, they would say, "When is the tea? When is the tea?" Because they knew it was so much fun. Everybody chipped in. But the most hysterical part of it, and you'll see it in this photograph, is that I would actually send out an invitation to all the ladies, and I would say, hats are required, gloves are optional. And you might come in your shorts and a t-shirt and a ball cap, but hats were required. This lady said, "I've been cruising for over a year. I've had my one funeral dress, black dress, and my pearls tucked away in a closet for the just in case I had to fly home for something. And I haven't had to wear it, so darn it, I'm gonna wear my dress and my pearls." And she came with a big old smile on her face. And yes, tea also involved a little bubbly. We had fun. Sometimes our appetizers were just simple things that we put together, but it was how you put it together. And these little birds sat on top of toothpicks, and I would take the toothpicks out of them and put new toothpicks each time. It just made it look a little fun. And here's some of the yummy things that people shared when they came to our tea. Rum balls and deviled eggs and little finger sandwiches, and my favorite was in the back in the basket. One of my wonderful friends baked scones on her boat. Oh, was that a treat. You never know who's going to show up and say, "Guess what? It's my birthday today." And you can come up with some really fun stuff to make people feel like it's a party. Now that's if it's fun for you. Remember, this is pleasure boating, and everyone has to think of what makes it fun for them. And that's what I want to open your eyes about today. I want you to think about what's important to you as you prepare your kitchen at home. That's going to be similar things that are going to be important to you as you prepare your galley on the boat. Some people like to grow. herbs and plants and things. And I have absolutely a black thumb. I cannot grow anything. And so somebody taught me that if you cut off the bottoms of your romaine lettuce, you can grow some more lettuce on your boat. I had a really good friend who grew lettuce in a big, long dirt pot on her back deck, and she would bring it in when the weather was bad, leave it back out on the back deck so the sun would get to it, and she grew beautiful lettuce. Many boaters will do herbs, and those are fairly easy to do as well. So let's go to what's in our galley. Our galley had a double sink, which I really didn't like at first because I thought, how am I going to clean my big pots? Well, most of the time it's just the two of you, so you don't have the big pots. And if you really do, you can clean them out on the dock. It really isn't difficult. But I also worked with a lot of baskets and things that if they fell over or fell off the counter when things got rough, it wasn't going to break anything. You also see a Brita pitcher. Some of us do filters below the faucet and some of us do it after, and in our case, we did it in both cases. Inside the cabinets is a whole nother story. When we open the cabinets, just like when you open the overhead bin on an airplane, things have shifted while you've been underway. So you want to think about that. How are you going to store things? What kind of things might fall out at you when you open the cabinet? I put a little pressurized curtain rod to hold things in place. And you also notice height. What is the height of your cabinet? And what can you put in there? So while I used to have taller bottles of different condiments, I had to go with shorter ones for the size cabinets that I wanted to put them in. So I spent the first couple of months that we lived on board with a tape measure in my pocket every time I went shopping and a list of how big the packages could be. You also notice a little yellow piece of paper clipped to the inside of my cabinet. That was my shopping list. So as I pulled something out of storage, I would cross through, it started with a number 7 and I would cross through it and write a number 6 and cross through it and write a number 5. And then I would take it off the cabinet and go to the grocery store with it, and I would realize I had way too many bottles of ketchup and probably not enough gin. So you can think that way now, even before you start boating. What do you use and how often do you use it? And how long does it take you to use it up? So you might want to consider dating things, putting the date on the top of everything you open so that you can figure out, is this something that I need 6 of for a year trip, or do I really only need 2 of? And I'll let you in on a little secret. Everywhere you go, there are grocery stores within just a few miles of where you are. There's my list. Now, I'm all about if it looks tidy and neat, then I can not stress about it. And boy, can a boat get cluttered quickly. So right above the kitchen sink, I had this clutter collector. And one of my friends said, why don't you just put a little curtain there? Because sure, you could put another cabinet door there, but that's going to take a skilled carpenter to do. So putting a little curtain that I could just take off and throw in the wash was great. A multitude of sins that just collected right in front of the sink, right in front of the sink. So every time I did dishes, I stared at that instead. I stared at a nice little curtain. Inside some other cabinets, you'll see a variety of things, including the cups. The cups that are plastic for when you're underway. And there's all kinds of variations of sturdy glasses for you to drink from now, and you just have to find what works for you. And it's okay if they're all mismatched, because then when you have guests, well, one guest can be the shark, another guest can be the navigator, another guest can be the captain. That's great. You also see some of the bubble wrap coverings that I talked about earlier that protect the glass, because I really did use a lot of glass on board. I really enjoy it. You can see on the far left of this photo, there's my wine glasses hanging up over the sink. Some cabinets, when you first look at a boat, you say, wow, this is a great big cabinet. Isn't that terrific? Well, it is and it isn't, because these cavernous cabinets then need to have everything moved in order to get to the thing in the back. So putting in some temporary shelving could help, and you can get those at almost any store. Certainly the packaging kind of stores, but also even as something as simple as Walmart or online, you can order it. I also really enjoyed my Rubbermaid containers that opened up to be large containers for storage, and then when they were in the cupboard like that, they accordioned right back down, and you put the lid on top of it. That's the blue in the center. Then I had a lot of plates because I thought I was going to break a bunch of them. And in between each of the plates, yes, I did put some bubble wrap or some plastic thick padding so that they didn't slam together as the boat would go up and down. But truth be told, I started this trip. We moved aboard in '95, and we bought 12 plates thinking we were going to break them, and I still have those 12 plates all these years later. People think, well, really, you're going to take all that padding in between each plate out every time? Well, no, most of the time it's just the two of you, so you're just using the top two plates. And isn't this a very interesting place to put my oatmeal? Well, it kept everything from shifting. So sometimes you get a little creative with where you're going to store things, but it was still in the galley, and it was still close to the rest of the cereal and things that I might have in the morning, so it wasn't too far off the path. It was right next to the bowls that I had to get out anyway, right? And it kept everything from shifting. Now, going off the path just a little bit, but when we'd leave the boat for any time at all, we would start a dehumidifier in the kitchen that drained right into the sink. And you might say, well, I have that feature in my air conditioner unit. You do, but I would never leave my air conditioner running, even in dehumidify stage, while I wasn't on the boat for any length of time, because if a hose ruptured inside the boat, that air conditioner was bringing all that water in from the outside, because it's a water-cooled pump, and that could sink the boat. So just setting this little dehumidifier up, just a big box store, nothing fancy about it. Plug it in. As you can see, it's plugged in the wall, and then the drain comes off the back into the sink. Easy peasy. Keeps everything dry. Back to the galley. See all my cutting boards and my knives tucked over in the corner? That's really important. And you'll see a little while later how some of those cutting boards actually span the sink, but not 100%, enough where I could still run the water if I wanted to. This was an awesome little rack that came with the boat. And to be honest with you, the only thing I really used it for was to collect things in and to put my big coffee mugs. That, as you can see, some bubble wrap was in between them to keep them from slamming together. But otherwise, I just kept my dishes inside the cabinet. And this cabinet was very interesting. Believe it or not, there's a method to all the madness here. I took old clothes that I was no longer wearing. Let's not say why I couldn't fit into them anymore, and cut maybe the legs off the pants, sew them up on one end, and poof, they were a bag to go over a bottle, a glass bottle that I didn't want to smack into something else. And all those koozies that you get from boat shows or from other boats that want to give you their boat name on there, and they covered the glasses, just like I showed you again in the beginning. And you can see I really did live like that. Anytime there was an empty space, it was always, what can I fill it with? What can I put where? In this case, this is one of those straw baskets that I spoke about on the left. And on the right, I will be honest with you and tell you, I didn't keep this for very long. This is one of those silicone pans. And it didn't really take up less space because I still had to have a frame for it in order for it to not flop all over the place while I had maybe cake batter or something in it and trying to put it in the oven.
And I really didn't like the stainless because it's stainless, not stain free. And it started to rust. So that had to go. Now, this was one of those times where we were coming back to the boat after a trip on land for a little while, and we had tons of groceries that we were purchasing or that we had purchased and we were bringing back to the boat, and we couldn't fit everything in the fridge anymore. So what you do, because you always buy too much, right? So you take these hunks of water that have now become ice out of the freezer, put them in an ice chest, and what you can't fit in your freezer or in your fridge, you can then keep cold with these blocks of ice that you made. Refrigerators and freezers work better when they're full, and this is a good way while you're gone to make ice. And I did it, every one of those containers are plastic, so that if, let's be honest, when they fall out of the freezer, they don't make glass shatter all over the place mixed in with ice. You just have plastic that's cracked in most cases. It doesn't really even shatter. So another trick, if you have a freezer door that opens up wide, you can tuck a lot more in if you just take some small line and lace it back and forth to hold more things in place. Because again, on a boat, just like on an airplane, that overhead bin, when you open it up, things fall out. A fiddle was very helpful for us in the case where we had metal shelves. If you have glass shelves in your refrigerator, you might need to glue that fiddle down if you're going to use it, but it did keep things from sliding right out. Now again, these cavernous holes, this was in the cabinet. You pulled up the countertop, it was below the cabinet. You pulled up the countertop and there was this lovely hole that was huge. You could fill so much in there. But remember, everything that you put in there, you're going to always need the thing that's in the very back bottom and have to pull everything out. So you might want to consider putting those things in baskets that you can pull a whole basket out at a time rather than one item after another. This was the way we like to do our coffee because, frankly, Chris doesn't drink coffee. I did. The Keurigs were way too big at this time, but now you could probably put a small 1-cup Keurig on there, and it's pretty easy, and it really doesn't take that much power to make a cup. But it's all about, again, what brings you joy. I like to French press. I like to have certain grind of coffee, and if you had a glass French press, well, that would definitely be asking to be broken on a boat. And it also didn't hold the heat in as well as this stainless French press did. Chris likes to say everything has to have more than one purpose. Well, this was obviously a clothespin, but it was also a chip clip. And our original, remember this was an older boat, our original steps going down into the galley were solid steps with carpet on them, which is insane for being around a kitchen, but we took the carpet off and Chris put some piano hinges in there just temporarily. That's all we were going to do until we got some teak, and finally we were going to finish it off and make it look beautiful. Well, I kind of liked the funkiness about it. It was okay. And I took a little sponge and put some New Orleans fleur-de-lis on there that didn't make me feel so homesick then. And we could store all kinds of things in our galley steps. Looking, what is an empty, gaping space that is just asking to be filled? Above my microwave, because nothing on a boat is straight either. You've got the outside curves of the deck, and the galley is following that form. So I had space above my microwave that I could store the muffin pans, or actually my dish towels were in that little box above there. That's where I stored them. And of course, your microwave and your oven, just remember that you have stuff in there before. Now, going to the grocery was always a really neat adventure. And we have canvas bags and zipper bags and all kinds of things that we take with us to the store. But this was the best that I had ever seen. My cousin had a lot of animals and she got a lot of grain, a lot of food, and even dog food bags. They come where they're not 100% waterproof, but they sure are water resistant because they're trying to keep the food inside dry. And she just took her little sewing machine, hemmed over the top, put some webbing material for the straps, and boy, those were great bags to fold up when you didn't need them, but to take them for your groceries or even your laundry if you were going ashore. And having copper clad bottoms, or at least in this case, these were aluminum clad bottom pots. These pots, again, we bought them in '95 to be good on the boat so that we didn't have to waste too much electricity. They would hold the heat in as they were steaming, or if you needed to use another eye, you could just push that over to the side and it would stay hot. And all these years later, we still have all these pots. Love them. See that? Bottom will hold an awful lot of heat. Now, I showed you before what to do with these coffee cans, and I'm telling you, I saved them. These have no coffee in them. They've never been used for anything other than coffee at this point, but eventually I'll use them for compost. And hopefully not ever again will I have to use them in a boatyard, but if you have to, you have to. Remember I told you I carried my notes of how big the drawers were and how big the cabinets were? Well, sometimes you have to buy smaller utensils or smaller boxes of Ziploc bags, aluminum foil, wax paper, so that they fit wherever you want them to be stored. So look at your galley with a keen eye and decide what is going to go where and what can I use things for, the space. But also understand, here I was in the galley, and I had an eye on my circuit breaker and my amps and volts. And I could see when I was turning on my microwave and or my stove if I had enough power. But if all of a sudden one of my guests started running their blow dryer, and look at the box on the right, the amps went all the way up. And if we went past 30, we'd pop some circuit breakers. So it's good to know power management, how much you can use on your boat. Just because you have all these appliances doesn't mean you can use them all at the same time. Now, see, it's two-bed galley. That's easy. We were working well together in this little galley. Looking down from the breakfast bar, also see how I had that cutting board over the sink, and we had a salad going, and we had all three eyes had pots on them, and then off to the side was the pan that had salmon in it, and it was continuing to steam while we cooked another fish because my dad didn't like salmon. So we had to cook something different. And you see why I really like to use those colored, um, not transparent containers for compost, because at the bottom right, I'm sorry, the bottom left of the screen, you see I had to resort to a plastic clear container to use for compost. And it gets gross after a while. I don't really want to see it. And at the upper uh, middle of the screen, you see my basket next to the refrigerator that has a lot of vegetables and fruits that don't need to be in the refrigerator. You start to learn that too, what needs to be in the refrigerator and what does not need to be in the refrigerator. And this is what we called our Sea Ray. And apologies to Sea Ray owners, but you tend to have a bigger wake than us little trawlers. And if you go past us very fast, you could knock our drinks right out of our hands. So we made these heavy duty caddies to put our drinks in when we were underway up on the flybridge. Here is, we pull into a marina and we see some friends that we haven't seen in many, many months, sometimes even years. And it's, let's have cocktails together. Or in the case of going out of your boat, you have docktails out on the dock. And you look at your refrigerator and you think, oh my goodness, I'm ready to go shopping. I don't have a lot of anything. So you put little dishes together with lots of little different things. That's called refrigerator review. Sometimes that's what you have to do. And you look at our martini glasses in the back too. They don't match, but that's okay. Then we know whose glass is who. Sometimes you might just have to go with cans, but most of the time you can get fresh food everywhere you go. In this case, I was trying to empty out a bunch of things, so I took canned mandarin oranges and canned crab meat and made a really lovely dish on top of the little bit of spinach that was left over. And we had some appetizers. But most of the time, if you don't eat canned food now, you won't eat canned food when you are cruising. There are farmers markets in so many places. There's grocery stores everywhere. And now you have Uber or Lyft that can bring you home even if you wanted to walk to the grocery and you loaded up with too much. Now here's what else we do with those martini glasses, because we're not always about drinking alcohol. Sometimes it's about having dessert and making something as simple as a pudding look pretty in a dish. We were lucky we happened to also have whipped cream, and that always makes everything good. But a few cookie crumbs, you might not have enough cookies for everybody to have a cookie in their dish as an accent, but you can crumble them up. And of course, in this case, add a little limoncello from the freezer, and oh, was that delicious. On our website, we have recipes, and this, believe it or not, is one of our most popular articles. It is our most popular recipe by far, and it's called earthquake cake. And when you take it out of the oven, it starts to go blurp, 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 and you have a wonderful, delicious cake that's mixed with its frosting at the same time. Go to our site and look at the recipe. Sometimes when you are at maybe in the Bahamas, different countries, you might have to get a little bit more creative with your grocery shopping. But in the US, no problem. When you go to the Bahamas, you need to sometimes hop in a ferry and go to another island where there's a bigger grocery store. Or you have to take your big boat and go all the way over, 6 miles, 7 miles away? They're not that far, but it's easier sometimes to just hop in the ferry and let them. But remember, most of the Bahamas, it's just like shopping at a big box store. You need to bring your own bags or bring your own boxes to bring it back to your boat. You can eat like this, underway, freezing, maybe scarfing down a little bagel and cream cheese, and like this every day. Believe it or not, every day. This is how we went. This is how we rolled. The only thing that's a little different, truth be told, on this page, is somebody brought me flowers that day. Otherwise, every bit of it is exactly how we dined with every meal, including cloth napkins, because a few napkins, you toss it in the laundry with your clothes, and it doesn't take up any time or any extra effort. But if you keep using paper napkins and paper towels, boy, your garbage really does add up. So we hope you enjoyed our galley tips, and you can enjoy some pleasure boating of your own, where your galley is a fun adventure. If you have any questions, ask Captain Chris.
Well, we hope you enjoyed our galley tips today. Boating can be another really fun adventure. And when you get some information that can help make the learning curve a little bit smoother, it can be even more fun. Little confession here. Before we started cruising, for all the million years that Chris and I were married, I didn't do any of the cooking. So understand, I learned some of these tips that I shared with you today, and I learned some of them the hard way. But it was fun cooking in the galley, and it was fun learning all these new tricks and being able to share them with you.
And to help your cruising adventure become more pleasurable, more fun, and longer, we have a lot of do-it-yourself repair videos that you can watch how to change fuel filters and do other maintenance do-it-yourself items aboard the boat. And other videos that we've got are docking, single engines, twin engines, locking if you're doing the Great Loop, and anchoring. Our most popular video is how to find the perfect boat for you. And no, we're not going to tell you what the perfect boat is. We're just going to show you a lot of different thoughts to open your mind and help you find the perfect boat for you.
So if you have any questions,
Ask Captain Chris.